Okay, great. We're going to get started. We are 7 o'clock on the dot. Welcome to everybody that's tuning in from all over South Africa. This is the Business Book Club's 47th event since our inception, and it's our 6th online event since COVID rearranged all of our lives earlier this year, and we've had to change our format, but luckily next month we have confirmation that our event next month is going to be a live event, and I will tell you a bit more about that later. But the one positive about this experience with COVID is this has helped us to reach people all over the country and not just in Johannesburg where our live events happen. And in fact, tonight's author is sitting in Durban. So we're also getting access to more authors, which is really, really a good thing. And we have all learned from this experience as well of how to run online events. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bronwyn. I've been working with the Business Book Club for just over 3 years now. And I absolutely love this initiative and what it's doing for people all over the country. And it's inspiring and helping so many people. So I'm very privileged to be a part of this. And it's a very exciting initiative for me. So just to give you a little bit of a background about the Business Book Club, we started in April 2017 with the purpose of sharing knowledge. Because what is the point of knowledge if we keep it to ourselves? And our founder has his favorite saying is, we don't know what we don't know. So these events are here to help teach you something in your life and in your business that you might not have known before. And it could just, one little thing could help you in a very, very big way. So we are a non-profit organization, and we interview a different local author every single month for people to learn, grow, and share in their lives and in their businesses. We have also collected over 8,000 books, secondhand books, new books, whatever people would like to give. And we distribute these books to underprivileged areas in South Africa. So I just want to share with you quickly a couple of the authors that we've had with us over the past few years. You can see their pictures there. We've had some very interesting, very inspiring people from all walks of life. We've got quite a few here as well, and I will show you one more slide of our authors. And we've also got some pictures I want to just show you of our distribution. Yes, one of our live events. You can see how really exciting they are, and we're so excited for our one coming up in December. And here are just some pictures of our founder, Jacques, who is handing out some books. So we're really trying to make a difference in the lives of South Africans to uplift the community. So, and do good around the country. And then lastly, I'd just like to thank our sponsors that are making these events possible. We've got some really amazing sponsors that help us out with to keep us going. So thank you to them. Also, we've got a new website, just thebusinessbookclub.org if you want to check it out. If you're not currently on our mailing list, you can register for our mailing list and keep up to date with all the next events and all the information of everything going on. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn if you'd like to follow us there and keep up to date there. Now, throughout the evening, I would like to ask you, if you've got any questions for our author, please submit them anytime you would like to, and then I will feed them through to our host for the evening, to our presenter for the evening, and we will get those questions answered for you. So think of any interesting questions that you've got. No question is a bad question. So I'd like to encourage you to ask your questions. Okay, so I'd now like to introduce you to the founder of the Business Book Club, the man that's responsible for this initiative. He's passionate about helping people succeed personally as well as in their businesses. He's a next level master coach who's helped more than 100 CEOs and other leaders take their businesses and their lives to the next level and more than double their company revenue. He's dedicated to making a difference in the lives of others. And I would like to hand over and present to you our founder and our CEO, Mr. Jacques Velleman. Jacques, are you there? There we go. He's coming.
I am almost here. Bronwyn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Bronwyn, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute privilege to be with you tonight and to share with you knowledge from a quite amazing author, Mike Saunders. He's a digital guru, and he's going to share with us tonight what it is to be human and relating that to the digitalization and this fourth industrial revolution that we're talking about. But yeah, just a big shout out to everybody that's online tonight. We really appreciate it. I really want to implore you to do at least one thing tonight, and that is take away one thing that you can implement from tonight. You know, life is not about big events, really. Life is not about, massive catastrophic events, because they happen every now and then. But greatness is really, really about making incremental changes on a daily basis. So my challenge to you is, when you walk away tonight from after listening to what Mike has shared with us in terms of digitalization and being human-centric, is take one thing that you can go and implement into your business, because that's what the Business Book Club is about. We're about sharing knowledge to businesses. We need businesses to grow in South Africa. We need businesses to thrive in South Africa, so we can get rid of this joblessness that we have in this country. We need to make this country great again, and we believe that growing businesses and making learning and reading a passion in everyday lives is something that supports that cause. So once again, thank you very much for being online with us tonight, with being with the Business Book Club, for your support. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our author of the month, our author of the evening, Mr. Mike Saunders. Drum roll. Mike, welcome to the Business Book Club. Absolutely amazing to have Mr. Guru, Digital Guru, on board here. Welcome.
So good to be here, Jacques. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Absolute pleasure, Mike. Mike, you are quite comfortable with Zooms. You're quite comfortable on stage, and you are also quite comfortable with writing books. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say comfortable, but we've been there. Yes.
You've been there. But Mike, this is HumanCentric. This is not your first book that you've written.
No, it's not.
This is your third or your fourth one, if I'm not mistaken.
It's my third one that I've written on my own, and then I contributed to a book during the lockdown process around trying to help entrepreneurs. So I contributed a few chapters to that as well. So there's 4 under the belt. Yeah.
Excellent. And those are also the 4 books that we are going to give away tonight for a lucky winner that Bronwyn will be managing for us in the background.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, let's get back to you and your business. You started your business, DigitLab, in what year? How many years ago did you start?
2010. 2010.
2010.
Yeah. So we're going. Well, we started. Sorry, I started working for myself in 2010. So we're going into our 10th year in 2021. So yeah.
Amazing, Mike. Mike, just shortly, what brought you into the digital space? I mean, of all the careers that you could have chosen, like how did you end up in the digital space arena?
Oh man, so I really, really wish I could tell you that it was like thought through and well planned, but it wasn't. I basically got retrenched and then spent a lot of time on Facebook, and then people at that time were trying to find people who knew how Facebook worked, and so that's what we ended up doing.
Teaching people how Facebook worked.
Yes. So that's actually what ended up happening was I got retrenched and I was looking for something to do, and I couldn't find a job. And so I did what anyone would pay me for. And so I ended up teaching people how to use Facebook. And then after a while, they said, "Can you do this for us?" So I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll give that a go." And we just kind of kept going from there. We just built it out. Yeah.
So what was the catalytic thing that made you stay with the digital era? Is it something that, once you found out you could do it, what was the link between the continuous or the sustainability behind it, Mike?
So I think for me, there was quite an interesting moment for me. What had happened, and I didn't quite realize how big this was for quite a while, but I got asked to speak at an event in Cape Town. So I flew down to Cape Town. Turned out to be a hoax event. They run these hoax events, get people to pay all this money, and then you arrive and there's no event. So I arrived to this hotel to speak at this event, and they were like, "No, there's no event." And that was the only reason I was going down to Cape Town. But because I was going down, I sort of ended up dovetailing a meeting in the airport as I was leaving, very not really expecting much to happen. And it was a meeting with a partner at KPMG who was busy doing work in France. And so he brought me onto his team to kind of promote family business consulting across the whole EMA region. And I had to fly to London to close the deal. And so I arrived there, and I'm spending all of this time listening to people tell me how amazing my business model is. And I'm sitting there going, "I think you guys believe in this more than I do right now." And then on the flight back from that, I started to realize that I'm probably holding something that is a lot more valuable than what I even anticipate right now. And so from those days onwards, I started to really think about this business as an asset of value, not just something I was doing to kind of bide the time until I got a real job, and really started to treat it like a business. Yeah.
Amazing. And obviously it's been going well, and it's been going for a while. So all good. So Mike, then you ended up writing a few books.
Yes.
And your final book, or your probably not your final one, but your book, HumanCentric, Technology Fails Unless It Means Something to Someone. I just love that the title and the subtitle. Technology fails unless it means something to someone.
Yeah.
And that's gold. Just that sentence.
Thanks. Hopefully it sells.
Well, the point is, I think a lot of time people do technology because they think they have to.
Yes, it's exactly that. Yeah. And that's exactly my point through the whole book, is that technology isn't a competitive edge. And everybody believes it is. Every meeting I walk into, technology is going to save the day. It's going to automate everything. It's going to make this happen. I'm going to load myself up online, and the clients and the customers are just going to line up to be a part of what I'm about. And I've helped many businesses get online, and I've seen lots succeed and I've seen lots fail. And the models and the strategies and structures have all been the same. So there's something else other than good marketing, good infrastructure, good technology that makes a business succeed or not. And that's what I wanted to try and really digest in this book. And so here's the thing. HumanCentric is the first real technology book that I've written. And I never wanted to write a book on technology unless I had something new to say. And so what I felt was new, and why I kind of took this project on, was that everybody on the technology circuit right now is talking about this idea that technology is this rat-paced, fast, accelerating vehicle that we all need to jump on. And generally they start with things like, we're already there. We've already been left behind. This is, you've got to jump on this train. They're high energy, very motivational conversations. But my experience has been the pace of technology isn't what we need to get our heads around. It's the fact that people use the technology. And if people are using the technology, then we have to build things that people want to use. And so that's where that whole phrase comes from. Technology will always fail every single time unless it means something to somebody.
Okay, so I don't want to jump the gun here, Mike, because I know you've got a great model, but there is something that I picked up in your book, which was, there was a whole section about the Internet of Things.
Yes.
And where businesses traditionally look at marketing and sales from, business to customer or business to business. But the part there that was interesting for me is this whole thing about machine to machine business.
Yeah.
Now help me understand, how does that now, machine to machine business relate to this whole human-centric theme, and especially the theme of, means something to someone if you've got two machines doing business with one another?
Yeah. So I think okay. Have you ever picked up a technological device and then it you think, oh, this is neat, but then you can't figure out what to do with it? It's like it's really cool what it's doing, but it's now like sitting on our bedside table and we're just kind of waiting for. It's like me buying a Garmin. I mean, I don't gym or run or anything. It's like, it's a watch. That's what it is. It's not, I mean, the technology means nothing at the end of the day. There's no value that's really being achieved here. And it's that sort of conversation that we say, like, okay, but if technology is not going to be used and implemented by someone, then it's not going to succeed. But the Internet of Things brings a whole new conversation to play, okay, that sort of underpins that. So for those that are listening, the easiest way to understand technology is if social media helped people connect with people across the internet divide, then the Internet of Things connects machines to machines. And they do that via a cloud server, so sitting on the internet, and they can send information backwards and forwards, and that cloud server tells those machines what to do. So the best example that I've got for you is this. If you're sitting in a hospital and there's a blood fridge there, the way they make sure that that blood stays the right temperature is a nurse checks on it every 15 minutes.
Okay.
If the temperature drops below a degree of what it needs to be or goes higher than a degree of what it needs to be in those 15 minutes, the blood is now off and can't be used. But how do you know that? Because if it went up and down in your 15-minute break, how do we know that that blood is good? And so the Internet of Things puts a sensor, a temperature sensor on it, and sends a signal to the cloud, and the cloud is a piece of code there saying, keep it at this temperature. So when it's high, send a signal back to cool the system down. When it's low, send a signal back to warm it back up. And so that's the Internet of Things in a very simple way. And then you apply that thinking to manufacturing, the whole manufacturing 4.0, the whole smart city concept, all of this stuff is all built on that very simple concept. And so, sorry, my dog is now crying at the door, and if I don't get it, we're going to listen to her cry all day long. So give me a second.
The dog, Mike. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time we have had an author with a dog problem. So definitely, if you have a dog, the chances of you writing a book is very, very good.
Yeah, no. So
we educating our audience there on dogs and authors.
I think the last webinar we did in the evening as well, it actually has my dog in it sitting next to me because there's just no way of getting around it. But yeah. So what I'm getting at is that now, prior to the Internet of Things, everything that was on the internet was put there by a human being. All the content, all the machinery, everything was there. It was put there by a human being. And we talk about this fact that there's so much content online that no human being can actually digest it all in their own lifetime. And that's only the content that was put there by a person. So think about how much content you can do, how much stuff you can do. You get 24 hours a day. You could probably, on average, stay awake for 12 of those. And you keep running and working and working and working. You got 12 hours a day per person on the planet. That's a lot of content. But now think about machines who don't sleep and who can put content on the internet faster than we ever could type it. And so this boom of data that everyone talks about is astronomical because now we have consistent machinery putting information backwards and forwards on the internet faster than we've ever imagined. We'll put more data on the internet next year than we did in its previous lifetime of the internet. And that conversation is really interesting. So why are this matters to people is that we do a lot of things to manage our lives. But if machines could manage themselves, we would have to do less things to manage machines. And that would give us an opportunity to do the things that make us more human. Does it make you human that you have to turn on your dishwasher? Does it make you human that you have to fix your fridge or send it in for a service or do these things? No, it doesn't. But these things can, in the future, hopefully be managed by these technology things, which allows us the time and space to do what human beings love to do, which is very often create and collaborate and be in community with each other. And so we do a lot of things that can be automated, can be restructured. And if you see this underbelly of the Internet of Things more as something that will support us that we may never feel. So think about this. How many times a day do you go to a payphone and make a phone call? We used to do that quite often, but we don't anymore. And we don't think of a cell phone as the latest piece of technology that's now disrupted and changed our whole world. We don't think of it like that. But we do use it all the time, and it's constantly in our hand. I think they say we touch our phones about 500 times a day, which is actually absurd. But we don't think of this anymore. We used to see it as a huge piece of technology was changing our world. Now it's just an everyday thing. It's a thing we carry around with us. It's part of who we are. Why? Because it makes our lives more convenient and manageable and more interesting to a degree. Yeah.
Well, would you say that it makes us more human?
I think the device, if used, I think phones particularly, there's a lot of life skill that needs to be kind of attached to how people use their phones. But I think that phones used correctly and used well can definitely create more space for human beings to be more human. Yeah.
Okay. Right, Mike, let's just get back to the whole concept of businesses. Now, if I was a business owner or if I, managed a big team in an organization and we had a project to think about the fourth industrial revolution and how that would impact our team and how would it impact our business models. What type of advice would you give us? I mean, what type of, where would we start with linking the impact that the fourth industrial revolution will have on our business models?
Sure. So Jacques, the first thing is that the fourth industrial revolution has become a catchphrase for anything technology driven. Okay. And so the first temptation that everybody is going to have as leaders in business or in organizations is that they are immediately going to be flooded with all the opportunities that are sitting there with technology. That's going to be the immediate thing. You mention the word for the phrase fourth industrial revolution, and someone will say big data, Internet of Things, brains now dying, robotics, and all of these different technologies, biotechnology, all of this stuff. They'll just start throwing these things. And if you go to a fourth industrial revolution conference, you'll just hear these catchphrases left, right, and center, and they're all technology driven. And so the thing is that what I would advise anyone at this starting point is go back to what business is about. It's about creating a product or a service for a customer to use. Yeah. And then go and say, okay, is there a way we can use technology to make that product better for the lives of human beings or for our customer? And if there is, then look at ways in which to implement that. Then you might want to turn that around and say, no, there's not a way we can improve our customer base, but maybe there's a way we can use technology and all this new technology that's available right now to streamline our business operations to make us more profitable. Or maybe there's a way we can use technology to create more decentralized working environments so that people can be closer to their families and stay in virtual environments during pandemics and not feel like they're disconnected from the working world and still continue to earn a salary and still survive the pandemic. And so maybe there's ways we can use that to make ourselves pandemic strong, And so there's always a place for technology, but the whole way you walk through that organization, you start to realize that it all impacts people along the way. And so business is relatively simple. Keep your costs low, keep your income as high as you possibly can, look after your people. That's essentially, if you bring it up in a very nutshell environment. Technology has a place to speak into every single one of those. And so the question is, how do I raise my revenue? How do I create more value for my customers that they actually find meaningful, that they'll purchase my product? How do I lower my costs, make myself more efficient, lean, and agile? How do I make sure my people are okay? And then in the midst of all of that, we deal with these macro things, like how do we build a pandemic-friendly business? I don't know if it's good to be pandemic friendly, but at least pandemic safe. How do I build a business that can withstand something like a 9/11? How can I build those things? If South Africa went to war with African countries, would we still survive? Could we even do that? We don't know. And these are the things, so we can mitigate risk. And these are conversations we could be having, but we don't have them. But we definitely don't have them when we talk fourth industrial revolution. What we talk about is augmented reality and artificial intelligence and all these cool things. But move beyond. You almost need to have this viewpoint that, yes, we will use technology. But from a business perspective, is why do we need to use this technology? Technology accelerates competitive edge. Or let me rephrase it like this. Technology will accelerate whatever you are. So if you are a terrible product, it will accelerate that to market. If you are a terrible person, the world will know. If you are a great human being, people will know. If you are a great business with a great product, people will share that and put that out there, and you will get the acceleration that you're looking for. Google Plus launched the worst social media network on the planet, as said by them. And they got 16 million users in 16 days. So you would turn around and you would say, oh, that's a great social network, but it was terrible to use, horrible to have, and and after 16 days, people pretty much bombed out of it, and Google wasn't too sure what to do with it and eventually canned it. And so you can accelerate anything with technology, but we need to focus on what that thing is that we're trying to accelerate. And that's going to be your edge in the fourth industrial revolution. It's going to be what you bring to the table for people. And then you have a technology conversation. Then you bring in the tech gurus and you bring in all the guys to try and figure out how it all fits together and what you're actually going to do.
Okay.
But if you lean, yeah.
So if you lean,
I'm saying if you lead the fourth industrial revolution conversation with technology, like so many people do, that's where you're going wrong. You have to lead the fourth industrial revolution the way we've led every revolution, by people.
So let's take a few examples just to explain to people what it is you're saying. And there's two specific examples that come to mind, Mike.
Yes.
The one is cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And the other one is digital printing.
Yes.
Those are two really breakthrough technology innovations that have taken place. And the reality is, I wouldn't even know. So let's say I do have a problem. Like I've got a problem of solving a customer's problem, but I don't know what I don't know. So I don't know about these technologies, or I don't know that these technologies can solve my problem. How do we make that link? And how do we go and say, sure, but I didn't know that this technology existed, that it could solve a problem? Like how would that work?
Cool. So there's a mechanism that I use that basically helps me understand what I should be reading and what I should be keeping my eye out for. Okay. And what it used to say is, I used to look at it like this, which is quite easy to understand, but you would go social, mobile, data, the Internet of Things. And then later I tagged on e-commerce. So social, mobile, data, and the Internet of Things. And I unpack all of these things, because if you think about it like this, every time something happens in the social media world, people have a different way to connect. Every time something happens in a mobile world, the context in which we can find people changes. And every time something happens in the data world, we now know something that we never knew before. And every time something happens in the Internet of Things world, we now have a way of being able to do something that might make people's lives more efficient and useful. And so as I kind of digested these things, I then ended up, like I said, I bolted on e-commerce, and then blockchain came along and I had to bolt on blockchain because it didn't quite fit in. And I kind of realized that now you've got too many things to watch. So what I do is I build the research that we do and the work that we do around the space around three things: context, relationship, and intelligence. Okay, so let me explain it like this. The biggest impact that one of the biggest impacts that technology has had is it's changed the dynamic of the context we find ourselves in. So that context has a digital overlay on it. So if I use an example, right, we're all sitting here in a webinar, and in front of me is a webinar screen. I have a webinar cam, an audio microphone. There's a camera pointing at me over here. I've got a light. I've got my phone here to also track what's going on. Okay, there's a digital layer across that. Plus, that same phone device has a whole communication stream that's happening in the background while this is happening. So while I'm talking to you, there's an opportunity to kind of connect with me in various different spaces. And so while another example is like while people watch TV, they call it dual devicing, but while people watch TV, they actually spend more time on their phone. And so TV commercials that actually ask you to trigger things off your phone are incredibly successful because they realize that the context is such that you are watching TV, but you will action off your phone. So TV no longer pushes me to your front door. TV pushes me to your website. And so the context shifts because I start to understand that there are different devices sitting in people's hands and there are different things happening. Now, when I go running, like I said, I don't, but if I went running, I've got a watch on my arm and I go running. And now there's context because now I'm tracking that information. It's being shared with a server, and I'm using that information to do various things, to share and build my ego as a human being, to share that I actually went on a run, and that was amazing in itself. And you should see how far I went, and all my friends and family are connecting. So I'm building a sense of ego and self and self-actualization by doing stuff like that. But then on top of that, I can plug that stuff in, and now Apple has an understanding of my health, which it shares with Discovery. And Discovery is able to then actually put me on plans and share that information with doctors to make my life a healthier life. And all of that's because the context changed, because now instead of gymming and doing stuff while I then have to remember and tell my doctor that I did this thing and my arm was a bit sore when I did that, whatever, I'm now tracking all of that information and it's all available somewhere in their context. And now I can actually create value as a business. And so there's this digital layer that shifts context, whether it's in a phone, it's on a watch, whether it's a computer screen. A couple of years ago, I watched a case study where they put keyboards into fabric. So the day is going to be very soon where technology is going to be sitting in the fabric we wear. It's just going to embed and embed and embed. So what you want to keep your eye on is what is happening in the technology space that defines or changes the context in which I find my customer or my staff. So you can literally run every single piece of technology article that you read through this context of saying, cool, that was interesting, but does it change the context of my customer? Does it change the context of my people? No, it doesn't. Okay, then move on. Or could it, I suppose? Okay. So that's context. Okay. The other thing is relationship, because not only does technology bring people together, and we know this because I have friends who have more successful marriages than my first marriage that actually met through Facebook and online channels when I went the traditional route, the way in which we were supposed to go. And that relationship didn't work nearly as well as theirs are working now. So we know we can kindle and create and build relationships in the online world that are quite successful. Okay. So now if we look at that and we say, okay, that's great. The relationships can be built, but now we go machine to machine, and machines can have relationships with each other and they can talk backwards and forwards. So now what you want to ask yourself is, as I read technology, what's changing in the relationships between people and people, devices and devices, and possibly even, and this is happening more and more, people and their devices. So let's put it this way. Panic buttons that were then released on phones created a new relationship. Because now my phone is my security device. It's not just my communication device. Watches and phones that could now track health now become my health device, not just my phone and security device. And so as things happen, the relationship is changing because of the way in which technology is coming to play. And so that's the other thing to look at. And then the last thing is intelligence. So think about it like this. We talk about big data and artificial intelligence and robotics and all this stuff, but it all comes down to this. Technology shifts the ownership and the way in which we can act off data. And so again, you look at the technology, the business and technology research that you're doing just as you read articles and read books, and you see something that looks interesting, like artificial intelligence applied, say, within the construction industry. And you say, that's really interesting. And why it's going to make a difference, or why I should consider it, is because it shifts the information from one place to another and changes the way we handle intelligence as an organization. And if that happens, then now you're sitting on something that's of value. And so instead of chasing technology, because you'll chase. And trust me, I know, because I've been chasing for 10 years. And I still have technology conversations where I'm dumbfounded by what's possible, because I tend to be quite a generalist in the way I approach things. And so you meet these specialists and you're like, what the freak? We mean we can really do stuff like that? And then he turns around and says, I'm sitting in your Nike shoe already. And it's like, it just, you can't keep up with this. It's too big an industry. So you need a different framework. You need different lenses. And so the lens of context, relationship, and intelligence, that's been the winner for me.
Excellent. Mike, I love what you're saying. And I love this whole approach to solving the customer's problem first before looking at it from a technology perspective. And before we go to the questions, I just want to mention this one example that I had with a client specifically today. And I guess it's a very simplistic example of what you're saying, where somebody, a company develops a website.
Yeah.
But as soon as you develop a website based on your own stuff, so in other words, your product and what you can do, which is the wrong approach. But as soon as you look at your website, you say, all right, I want to look at my customer's needs. So I want to look at, when my customer goes onto the web, what are they going to search for? How am I going to position this website? What functionality does the website have to have? Not what functionality do I think is cool and shanana and like all the bells and whistles and it looks pretty, and it's not about that. It's about so if we give advice, so if you want to give advice now to clients or to business owners, I guess the first thing would then be is something as simple as your website. Like don't do it from your perspective. Go unpack what somebody else needs.
So, I mean, I'm smiling because what you're talking about is what I do all day. So people say, can you build me a website or can you build me an app? I go, cool. First we're going to do, we sit down together and we're going to talk about this thing. And they go, great, let's do that. And then I say to them, cool. So tell me the personas of the people who are going to use this app. Blank stares. Because we haven't had a conversation in the business yet about the fact that there are people that are going to use this app. We've had a conversation that this app is going to streamline our business and we want people to use it. And we want people to buy from there because it's going to save us money. But we haven't had a conversation of who those people are. And so we work through a very simple process of like, define who those people are, persona. And then ask yourself, how do you want them to navigate through your website? What's the user journey? And once you have that, you build the sitemap. And once you get the sitemap, you then decide what technology is necessary to get the people to do the thing they want to do. And the thing is that what amazes me over and over and over again is that the best, most useful websites on the planet have hardly any fancy technology behind them.
I don't want to put you on the spot there, Mike, but have you got any examples for us to look at? Wikipedia.
Okay, so think about a media website. Okay, just media. Media websites are some of the most browsed websites on the planet. Why? Because people want to know what's going on in the world. People buy into all the different conversations, etc. News 24, ETV, all of these things, right? There's nothing fancy about the idea of producing content on a website. Yet, if they make their website content available in the right ways, people will eat it up. How do they do that? Simple UX experiences that don't change so people understand how to use it often, and then create juicy content. But the technology itself to produce the website is not overly difficult to put together. You get an exception like Facebook when it first came was very technical, but there we were talking about a revolution into social media. Now when you look at it, that social technology is not really that hard to implement anymore. It's like to do it at that scale, yes, difficult. But to do socialness online is not really necessarily that difficult. And we know that. Why? Because there's so many social networks that are cropping up all over the place. An online forum is a simple piece of technology, yet they've been the one place where so many businesses have been able to build loyal advocates of their brand who will answer and deal with their customer base. The likes of Apple, the likes of Vodacom, all of these people are using forums to engage their people around their product and build advocacy. And a forum is a very simple documented chat system. These are not complicated technologies. They're just, the thing is, if you want to reach more people with something, make the technology more redundant.
Wow, I like that.
You want to reach the whole of South Africa, use SMS and USSD. They're not complicated, but they will reach everybody. Everybody, and no matter what level you are in society, you know how to engage with an SMS and with USSD. I don't know if that answers your question. But
yeah, absolutely, Mike. And there's so many things that I can just pick off from that conversation that I want to talk to you about. I'm really enjoying this. But I do want to go to our audience and make sure that we are covering some of their questions. And Mike, I can see that there's a question on the side there from Britt, which reads social media for business. Is it more about the people brand leader, or do you think people are actually interested in the actual company content? Has social media turned towards being human? And is it a better strategy to have your MD and CEO in the face like Elon Musk? What's your take on that, Mike?
So there's quite a lot packed in there. So let me go. So is it more about people, brand leaders, or do you think it's actually about the company content? Okay, so I debated this for ages. My second book is called Renowned. It's about building online personal brand. I'm a huge advocate for personal branding. I think it's the way forward. The guys like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, they really showed us how to do this and to do this well, okay? They do create a lot of great empathy for business and a lot of great trajectory. But they are phenomenal people in front of a camera. They are brilliant at communicating like that, of getting buy-in, of getting people passionate about what they're doing. It's a skill set of theirs. Whereas some CEOs and MDs, the skill set of theirs is the operational knowledge or the way in which they connect one-on-one with their people and bring the best out of them. And so if you take a person like that and throw them up on a camera, they're going to stutter their way through and they're going to represent your brand badly. So my answer to that would be social media does well with personal branding. Very well. But if you put a person into a personal branding space who is uncomfortable with what you're asking them to do, it's going to come across as uncomfortable. Okay. And so you're going to create an uncomfortable brand by building that out. And so that's the one thing. The other thing is that not all businesses are built in such a way that having a face suits the business. So like Coca-Cola, as an example, isn't run by its founder anymore. And so there's no no one really cares who the CEO is. As long as Coke stays at a certain price and creates great ads and makes me feel fantastic, like I'm good, So I don't need to follow the Coke CEO. As a business person, I might want to follow the Coke CEO because I want to know who they are and what they're doing, and I want to follow their career. But as a consumer, not necessarily. And so there's a space for both, in my humble opinion. And I work with these guys, and I went through a phase of telling everyone I met that it was all about personal branding. I mean, like I said, I wrote a book about it because it means that much to me, and I still believe that. But I have come to learn that there are spaces where it doesn't work, either because the person is not the right fit or the brand is actually needing to be presented in a different way. Johnny Walker is an example. Like, what would happen if a CEO suddenly turned around and said, I'm the CEO of Johnny Walker? We'd be like, stop trying to steal the limelight from Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker is the man. We have no idea who he is. He's on a bottle. Jack Daniels. Some guy gets up and says, hey, I'm Joe Andy and I'm the CEO of Jack Daniels, and I want to tell you, like, we don't care about you. We care about Jack Daniels. He's the guy we buy into. He's the persona we think we can match. So brand is strength when it's built right and it's done correctly. So I really think that it's an interesting thing in that case. Yeah.
Okay. That makes actually a lot of sense. I like the fact that, if somebody's uncomfortable in a certain space, they're going to create an uncomfortable brand.
Yeah.
And that in itself is extremely valuable, which is a very good realization. I'm just looking there at some of the other comments. Leading with tech leads to more and more noise, of which there is way too much already. And I mean, we know that, Mike. I mean, you've actually said it. As part of your framework of getting to do research and really understand what there is, you've got to have a disciplined approach to all the noise. Otherwise, it will just totally consume you, right?
Yep. And that's Clint Griffin. He's a mate of mine, so I'm pretty sure he's just here to troll me. So, yeah. Clint, thanks for saying something worthwhile.
A troll, but you can take that up with him. Mike, the other concept that I want to dive in with you is this concept of the lean startup, where you sort of look at things and more try and test it, because I think a lot of people are in a sense scared about technology or what technology can do, and they're also scared of the cost element of it. Like, do I need to build an app, and is this app gonna, how much is this app gonna cost me, and how do I know whether there's going to be value? Have you got any insights from your experience with clients and frameworks for people on this webinar to listen or to take home with them on how to deal with the concept of, do you need an app for that?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually had this conversation about a week or two ago on another podcast. It's something I feel very strongly about. Now, just a bit of background. Because I'm in the technology space, because I'm in digital, and I speak at a lot of conferences and that, I have a lot of people who come up to me and say, I have an app, and will you help me build it? Where can we go? And et cetera, et cetera. And because I've been in so many of those conversations, I've realized a couple of things, and I'll share them. I'll share them in my book, but I'll share them with you now as well. But I've realized quite a few things that make a successful business. And again, you'll be surprised how little it is about the technology. And so the one is obvious. I call them intersections. Like, think of road intersections, and you think of a retail outlet. You always put your retail outlet on the intersection, because that's where you're going to get the most foot traffic from both roads. Okay, so it's the same concept, except I'm talking about 3 intersections, and you ideally want to find a way to intersect on all 3 of these ideas. The first is audience readiness. So we've spoken about human-centricness. Is the audience ready for this product? If they're not, then they're not going to buy it. Hardly anyone was on MySpace, okay? And hardly anyone was on LinkedIn at the beginning, because LinkedIn is older than Facebook, and most people don't know that, because they think it came out afterwards, because they went to it afterwards. Just because the technology is there doesn't mean people are going to use it. They need to be ready to use it, okay? Yeah. So audience readiness, do your work there, okay? The concept of build it and they will come doesn't necessarily work in the technology space. In fact, it's very rare. All right. The next thing is, and this thing that people always miss, is the commercial model. So, and this is where a big part of the conversation sits for me. So many people provide ideas to me, and that whenever I ask them where's the money coming from, they don't even know yet. So they're saying, well, I'm going to build this app and then people are going to download it. I'm like, cool. How are you going to keep that app running? How much money are you going to make through this thing? What team are you going to have to support it? Where are you going to go with it? What's the business model behind this? How are you going to generate revenue? She said, no, I haven't thought about any of that. Go and think about that, and then let's come and have a conversation. Because if I build you something that you don't have a revenue model for, in a year from now, you are going to hate me, because I just cost you a lot of money and you don't have a business anymore. And so this concept of revenue model becomes so important. And people think that because I've got a digital business, I've got to close deals in the digital space. No, you don't. I launched a digital academy, and I closed a deal face-to-face over a phone call that got it off the ground, over a table that got it off the ground. That contract stood me instead to run this for the next 5 years. So why can't we lean on things that actually we know will sell deals, will make things happen? I'm better in front of people than I am on a camera. I'm better in front of people than if I'm sitting on the end of a webinar. I've had to learn this stuff to get my head around it so that I can try as best as possible to relay what I'm doing here in this room to everybody else on the other side. And people go, oh, but I'm building an e-commerce store, so I can't close deals. Why can't you close deals like that? Why can't you go to a manufacturer that you know the owner of and say, hey, why don't you start buying your 17,000 widgets from me every month? Because you didn't build an e-commerce store, you built a business that sells widgets. And one of your avenues is an e-commerce store. So build your business model, build your commercial model, and make sure that that's there. And that for me, like I knuckle it down to this: you don't have a business until you have a sale, and you're not going to stay in business unless you're selling.
In the long run.
So that commercial model for me is really, really important.
Yeah, I like that, Mike. But I think a lot of people fell for the Google story,
Yes.
the fantasy story where Google existed for years and didn't make any money, and now they're swimming in the dollars, and everybody think they're going to be the next Google. But those are once all fairy tales.
It is. And also you got to understand, like if you read the Google story, like for a number of years, they didn't commit to that. That was kind of just this project on the side, and then it started costing them money, so they needed to offload it, and they wanted to give it away, and they wanted to sell it just to kind of make their money back, and they wouldn't get it. They put a proposal in front of Yahoo to sell it for like $1 million. Yahoo said there was no future in search at the time, probably kicking themselves for that. But either way, like they built this algorithm that could do a fantastic thing, but how did they monetize it? The story goes that they stole a piece of technology from a competitor that did advertising. And so they used that technology to be able to work out how to build an ad engine for their system. And that's how they got off the ground. And that's how Google still makes money. So yeah, fancy technology. It's amazing. It might draw people in, but until you got a commercial model, you don't have a business.
Yeah, you only have a big expense.
Yeah. And I've been down this road so often, even to the point where I think this year I've turned down at least 2 or 3 projects people have asked me to work on, just purely because they don't have a commercial model. And I'm not ready to engage people anymore unless they've got a commercial model, because it just ruins our relationships.
Okay. I get it. Cool. Mike, we've got one more. Well, we've got a question there because we've got to wrap it up in a few minutes. I want to give an opportunity to announce the winner of those 4 amazing books that you are giving away tonight. Awesome. But let's have a look at what Helen has to say. And she's got an interesting question there, Mike. Is there still space for digital magazines? What do you think will take over the space, and how do you think article kind of information could be put into the world? That's quite a hard question to answer, but give it a stab.
It's very difficult. I'm nervous now. But look, I think that there's a space. The beautiful thing about the internet is that there's lots of people on it. So there'll be people that will read digi magazines, whether they're the masses and you can sell them for around a unit and make billions of dollars, I don't know. But there might be a small community of 100,000 people globally that are interested in a digital magazine that is specifically about chess. And so those people, that community will pay, but they'll pay a bit more because it's a very niche type product. And so there's a very good possibility. The joke I always use is, someone out there plays tiddlywinks in Australia and someone else plays tiddlywinks in the States, and the internet has allowed them to play tiddlywinks together. Like it's this, and to talk about it and to get excited about it and to do all these things. So I do think that there's a market for almost anything. But the commercial model is a big question, and will their market support that commercial model? But I think for me, digi magazines, as in those page flip concepts, are losing their traction because the internet is not about sitting down and digesting content. We don't think like that anymore. The internet is about consuming content as fast as we can and organizing it and making it a sense. And so when we sit in front of our computers and do stuff, we don't see ourselves sort of sitting back and kind of browsing our way through. iPad apps are doing relatively well, trying to build subscription bases for magazines and try to sort of transfer them. As we went into lockdown, we saw a number of businesses close. They were in traditional print, but keep their online pieces open because the cost base is lower to produce it, but also because the demand is just there in the online space. So I think article style content is going to continue to be a fast digest with a smaller group of people looking to kind of go deeper. And those people who go deeper may want to do so in various forms of content. So long content film on YouTube could get lots of good streaming, documentaries, those kinds of things that dive deeper. There is a case, though, that as consumers are being pushed with more and more fleeting small pieces of content that give them a breadth of something, that they're starting to reminisce about long form and just getting drawn into something. And I think that's where Netflix has done so well with binge watching film and stuff. They're just allowing you to kind of get sucked into something in detail. They do a lot of content around documentaries, and we know lots of people who just get absorbed into documentaries because they take us away from that rat race of like just content coming at us in bite-sized pieces the whole time, and allows us to be able to focus our minds on one thing. So I think I'm speaking around in circles here, and I'm not sure I'm really adding value to the answer. But I think if I was to try and just take a stab, yes, there's a space for anything. Personally, I wouldn't back an idea on digi magazines. I think content is being distributed in different ways.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Mike. So last question before we wrap it up, or more advice. I mean, if you had to give advice to somebody that wants to start a business and they want to go and sell products online, or in the digital space, what would you advise them? Facebook or a website?
Just as simple as that.
Yes, just a simple question like that.
If I've got to pick one or the other, I'd go with a website.
Yeah.
Reason being, you own it. It's your space. You can do things to get people there. Facebook, even though you've got a following, you still have to pay to access them. Google, you don't have to pay to get people to access Google. If you're the right product and you can prove to Google that you're relevant, you can get in front of your customer. So you've got more of a fighting chance with a website than you do on Facebook, in my mind. Facebook's a locked environment. It's very difficult to get stuff out organically as a business. As a human being, as a personal profile, yes, it's very viral, but not as a business. So I'd build offline. I'd build off a platform like Facebook and build on a website.
Amazing, Mike. Thank you.
The other thing is just bear in mind that people go to Facebook to socialize, and they go to Google to buy.
So the stats on people pushing ads on Facebook to buy, is there any relevance in that? I mean, because I know if we go and we troll through Facebook, you just see so many ads and stuff coming up. I mean, is that effective? Are people buying that way? Should I consider selling my products through that, or should I just dump that and go Google ads?
So the rule is that an average person needs 7 connections with your brand before they purchase. So that's where social comes into the picture, is they create multiple new connection points. But think about this. If you are buying something, you don't go to Facebook and search for that thing. You go to Google. And if that's where you're going, then that's how you want to. That's where you want to be.
So the one is a push and the one is a pull.
Yeah, but a mate of mine is a wedding photographer, and people go to Facebook to find wedding photographers. So, yeah. But ultimately, if you're trying to flog a widget on a website, I think you're in a good space.
which is not a website. Mike, thank you so much for spending time with the Business Book Club tonight. I really enjoyed our conversation. Big takeaways for me from this is definitely this thing about being customer centric and focusing more on the customer's problem, and then looking for the technology to fit the problem. I love what you've said about the app. If you want to have app, make sure that you know how it's going to make money. And not just, because that can quickly bring a big dark hole into your life. And I quite enjoyed the thing about the Internet of Things, how that works in relation to our needs. Because at the end, you still have the internet working up and down, like the Internet of Things, the bots working with each other, but there's still going to be a human connection on either side of that. Yeah. It was a great reminder. So, Mike, thank you very much for spending time with us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I'm looking forward to see who's the winner going to be of the 4 books. So, Bronwyn, I'm going to hand over back to you. You can come online and then announce to the audience who this winner is going to be.
Okay, great. Can you hear me, Jacques?
Yes, Bronwyn, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Okay, so we do have a winner. Stephen Makubedu. He was from Facebook. Stephen, we will get in touch with you to get your books to you. So that's the winner for them.
Congratulations. Those are awesome books, Stephen. And we'd like a summary of each one before the end of the month of November, please. We really appreciate that. We want to send that on to all our donations. Or to all the schools that we donate books to. Stephen, I'm just joking.
Can I just announce our next event?
Yes, please, Bronwyn. Go ahead.
Okay. So our next event is happening on the 1st of December, the final one for the year, and it will be happening at The Rock at the Design Quarter in Johannesburg. And can I reveal who that will be with, Jacques?
Bronwyn, absolutely.
Okay, our guest author, we've had him before and everybody absolutely loved him, is Pavlo Phitidis, and we are going to be chatting about his book Reset, Rebuild and Reignite. And we will be live streaming that event as well, and we will also do a podcast of that one so that everyone around the country gets to see it as well. Okay,
Pavlo,
so that's...
Bronwyn, just one thing about Pavlo. Pavlo's absolute dynamite. This guy takes an opportunity, takes a negativity and turns it into an absolute opportunity. He took COVID and he said to COVID, "Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm going to write a book." And he has produced that. I mean, Pavlo is on 702. He's helped many businesses grow, take ideas, make it big. He's got his own businesses that he turns around. He's absolutely amazing. His previous book is full of gems. Build, Sale, Scale, Sell. So yeah, guys, you've got to be at the event. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be live. We're going to be human again, like Mike has reminded us tonight of being human. But for those of you who cannot be in Design Quarter, we appreciate that you won't necessarily be able to buy a ticket from Durban or Cape Town to come and join us, but you can join us online, and we look forward to having you with us.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody for joining us. It's been a really amazing evening, and we hope to see you at our next event, or you will see us online. So have an awesome evening, and thank you for joining us. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Bronwyn.
Okay, ciao.
Yes.